Hello and welcome. Today we're looking at the flashback delay and we're creating a tone print that covers vibe, chorus, kind of a Leslie effect and even a slow flange when we use a bit of overdrive. Let's have a listen to it first and see what it does. Here's my clean sound with a little bit of reverb on it. Let's start with the slow vibe. Here we're dialing in a little bit more richness there. So that's our vibe chorus mix. Still very pulsy. Turn the speed down on the delay knob, becomes like a old style chorus. Keep turning the feedback up, we get a richer chorus again. If we have a little bit of richness of chorus and dial up out here. Almost getting a slow Leslie effect. And a fast Leslie about there. Just take some of that depth out. So there's quite a range there. The more you increase the speed, the more obvious the depth is. The more you increase the depth, the more obvious the speed is. So they work together. If you dial them right back, you can get pretty much... It's the most subtle it's going to be. Well, kind of there. Which I'll explain what we're doing there in a minute when we build the tone print. But if we've got the slowest speed, that's how we can dial up any kind of chorus sound we want there. So that's kind of the first mode. So with clean, we get a chorusy sound. But if we go with a overdrive sound, definitely more of a flangey kind of feel to it. Then if we're hitting from about 2 o'clock, we're getting into vibrato mode, which the speed there is about 3 hertz kind of thing, which is 3 cycles a second. So if we're below 9 o'clock, we're getting a single wobble, a single signal. So we're only using depth 1, this one here. So that ranges from 2.6%, and then it goes down until we hit the minimum of 1 at yeah, about 10 o'clock. And then when we dial up from there, we start mixing in the richness. You can hear it straight away, and you can see depth too is coming in as well. So we can get more of that chorus vibe mix, like a uni-vibe kind of thing, but without the phasing, which we don't really have an option to do with this modulation engine, but there you go. Still not too bad. If we increase that speed a little bit before the richness gets too much, you can hear that's a much more usable tone there. So it's very about balance. If your delay knob is past noon, then you probably don't want to have your feedback past noon, otherwise it becomes very, very washy very quick. Too much. But if you've got the delay knob before noon, you can find some good spots in there as well. Okay, so let's look at how to build that tone. Okay, so we've got the settings here all in front of us anyway, but basically the idea is, starting from the top, so you want to switch on the kill dry. So you kill the dry signal, so we're just getting that affected signal. We need to ensure that our delay time, our feedback, and our release time and reverse delay time are all at the minimum. So we don't want to have the effect delayed, otherwise you get a pause after you play. Feedback is going to do nasty things if we don't have that at 0 as well, and we'll set up something so those can't be altered by the knobs accidentally when you switch off the Toneprint and come back. We'll look at that in a minute, but basically going through all of the delay settings: 0 milliseconds, 0%, 0 decibels for saturation, 20 kilohertz, so the maximum for high cut, minimum for low cut, that's 20 hertz. Output level should be the maximum at 0 decibels. Dynamic sensitivity should be maximum. Dampening or damping should be the minimum at 0 decibels. Release time should be the minimum of 20 milliseconds, and reverse delay time should be 50 milliseconds as well. So here's where the meat of it is, in the modulation section. We want to use the tri-chorus modulation type. We want modulation on, and we want the through zero flanger set to 0. Speed, don't worry about setting that. We will control that with the delay knob, and you can see down in the knob range here, we've got a nice big curve for that there. So we'll set it up there, so don't alter it here, otherwise it's going to change anyway. Depth we will change with the feedback knob, so we've got a nice little scoop there. Depth 2 will be changed by that. Depth 3 we want to set to 0%. High cut should be the maximum at 20 kilohertz because we're not cutting anything off. The mix should be 100% maximum as well. Output level maximum of 0 decibels. Delay time 1, let's set that to 1 millisecond. Let's set delay time 2 to 3.1 milliseconds. You can use your scroll wheel to get exact values with these. In case you haven't discovered that yet. It's much easier than just trying to drag it with the mouse. Delay time 3 we're going to set to 1 millisecond, although we will be controlling that a little bit later I think as well. Feedback should be on 0% right in the middle, and the feedback high cut should be at the maximum of 20 kilohertz. Right, that's the easy stuff. Let's look at the knob selection. Now with the Flashback Delay we only have 2 assignable knobs. On the Corona chorus we have 3 knobs. On this one we only have 2, so we're going to have to make the most of what we've got here. I think I've squeezed as much functionality into those 2 knobs as we can, taking into account the idiosyncrasies of this pedal and what's going to be usable. So this is kind of a Swiss Army knife kind of Toneprint because it does quite a few things, but it should be easy to dial up the sound you want as well. So let's start with the modulation. Now, when you are using a vibe, it's quite different from a chorus kind of modulation because we want to hear that pulsing very obviously. So we don't want to be too slow. So that's why we've got our minimum modulation speed as 1 hertz. That's 1 cycle per second, which sounds like this. Dial up the depth so you can hear that. So that sounds okay as a chorus sound and as the slowest of the vibe. So I think that's pretty good. So stepping through these modulation settings, so this is on the first element here. We're going to go 1 Hz, 2.9 Hz, so jumping up to nearly 3 cycles a second, 3.87, 6.9, and then finishing on 10 Hz, because realistically, I don't think anybody's going to use that, but it's good to have the extreme just in case. But not a sound I'm really going to use. So the other settings we've got on this particular knob are really just our safety net. We're going to set the feedback to 0 all the way across, and we're going to select the delay time as 0 milliseconds all the way across. Now the reason we're going to do that is because you can program the delay time of the pedal by using holding the pedal down and setting the tempo. And that will stay across patches as you move into things. So if we switch to the Toneprint from something else where we've set the delay time, it's not going to be at 0 milliseconds like we've set it. It's going to change, and that's going to cause problems. So as soon as we go into the Toneprint, if you're getting a lag between what you play and the sound coming out, then just twist this delay time, and that will set the feedback and the delay time to 0 milliseconds, because we do not want to ever be above 0. So assuming that the delay time is 0 milliseconds, the reason that we also set the feedback at 0 is because you get this horrible effect if it's too high. You get this squeaking feedback coming through. You can only just hear that, but it's horrible. So we're not going to risk that. So as soon as you get any kind of malfunction with the delay lagging or any kind of squeaking with the feedback, hit the speed knob, and that will reset those two parameters to 0. Right, so that's our safety net taken care of. And really easy to program. You just drag them to the bottom on every one of those 5 parameters. So, right, feedback knob. This is the second knob we have. We're going to use our main modulation control is on depth 1. This is the one that's going to be interesting. So looking at it, we start off at 2.6%, which not too wide, but good enough for a vibrato. When we're in this range, only depth 1 here is on. So this one, depth 2 and depth 3 are set to 0. As we turn that up, it gets slightly less. So it's like a tilt kind of switch, and that we come back to that 0 point, or the minimum point for switch for depth 1. And then once we get past 2 o'clock, depth 1 cut starts going up, but also depth 2 is going to join in as well. Okay, so let's look at the setup for depth 1. Starting on 2.6% for the first parameter, then for the second setting we're on 1%, then back to 2.6%, 3.6%, and finishing with 6.2%. Now this is probably the deepest that I think we're going to want with a chorus thing. Also with the vibe in there, it really accentuates that sound. If we have anything bigger than 6.2%, I'll just turn that all the way down so you can hear. Not really usable. So that's why we don't go higher than 6%. Okay, so that bottom part of the switch range here, it's like the basic delay Toneprint that we did, and that will basically knock out the other two voices. So all we're hearing is that single warble. Then once we get to 2 o'clock, the modulation depth for depth 2 kicks in, and we're seeing that come in. So we're on 0, 0, and then it starts gradually rising up to 1% in the third setting. So once we hit 12 o'clock, that's at 1%. 3.6%, which I think that means now it's caught up to depth 1 at the 4th position once you get to 2 o'clock. and then 6.2 for that full position at 5 o'clock. We're going to keep depth 3 at 0. That will not increase. The reason I chose not to use the depth here was because I found that once you added in the third voice of the tri-chorus, it just got too washy. There's too much modulation going on there. I can show you what that sounds like. It's so that's okay. But then if we turn this up, set it to about the same 4.9. It's just a bit too much compared to that seems a bit more tempered. It's still quite deep, but I found it detracted from the effect. So it was a lot more chorus, a lot more slushy, a lot less vibrato, and it's kind of supposed to be a middle ground. So what we are doing though is for the last part of the dial there, of the feedback, we're going to increase the modulation delay time. So that's going to give us a little bit of spacing because it's slightly delayed by a few milliseconds, but it doesn't give us that extra washiness because of the depth of the modulation. So you can see we start off with the minimum of 1 millisecond all the way across to the 4th position for delay time 3, and then we scoop up to 8.5 milliseconds, which sounds like this. So it means that when we're in this chorus mode with the speed right down, you're getting slightly more richness if we dial back to where that's. You can hear how that really cleans up. Then when we get back to the midday position, or noon, a lot thinner. And then when we get round past 2, you can hear it's that single voice. Okay, so that's basically it. That's the whole Toneprint. So one knob, we've got the speed, the feedback and the delay time, all set at 0. The feedback knob, we have the depth, with some slightly fancy ratios there so that we get a little bit of extra effect as we turn that up and down. I'm going to turn on a little bit of overdrive now so you can hear what that sounds like. Okay, so back to our clean sound. Let's have a little bit of overdrive. And let's try that with a vibrato kind of sound. Now, this is the effect I was talking about before. When we roll up the depth on the feedback knob and roll down the time, definitely a flangey kind of feel to that. It's a lot more obvious with the overdrive. We don't even have to have too much depth there. I guess that's because it's such a slow chorusy kind of feel. loosely kind of feel here. Or a fast loosely, which is probably about 1 o'clock. Overdrive. So overall, that's a fairly usable set of tones. Lots in there with just a couple of knobs to turn. Hopefully you find that useful. If you've got any suggestions or comments about making it better, or what you like, what you don't like, put it in the comments below. I hope you enjoy it. Have fun. Here's an overview of all the settings for this Toneprint. I'll put a link in the description of where you can download the image. If you found this video tutorial helpful, click the thumbs up. If you'd like to see more videos like this, click subscribe. Thanks for watching.